Okay. Good morning, everyone. We want to give you an update on the storm that's now hitting our city. Want to start by saying yesterday we saw something I don't think we've ever seen. You know, what felt like a beautiful spring day, no sense that we were in the middle of winter, and then today a full-fledged snowstorm. So we really tried yesterday to get the word out that people had to prepare. And we obviously made the decision earlier than usual to close schools when we saw the intensity of this storm. This is an unusually fast, intense storm. We wanted to get New Yorkers ready for it. And by and large, people have heeded the warnings and acted accordingly, but there's still some things we're going to have to do, and I want to talk about that in a moment. Closing schools obviously was a key part of the preparation, getting our sanitation department on full alert, and you'll hear from Commissioner Garcia in a moment, but I want to say once again our sanitation workers are out in force and doing a great job, 2,300 vehicles. They're going at it really hard, really well, and I'm impressed by what I've seen already. I took a tour out in Queens through Astoria, Long Island City, and Jackson Heights. Those are some areas where we had a lot of trouble during the big blizzard last year. I liked what I saw. I know there's going to be more work to do today, but I think sanitation was off to a strong start in those areas. And we'll be monitoring all day long, looking for areas that need particular attention. Commissioner Garcia and I have been talking throughout the day. We will be talking as the day proceeds. But so far, I want to say I think sanitation is doing a fine job trying to deal with unusually intense conditions. And I want to give you a sense of that. You know, we have now had 2 hours in a row at LaGuardia, and LaGuardia is one of our primary measurement stations. We've had 2 hours in a row where we had 3 inches of snow, and that is unusual. We have a lot of storms that go, you know, a whole day. You talk about 1 or 2 inches an hour, but to have 3 inches in an hour, 2 hours in a row, is a really extraordinary level of accumulation. Now, right now, we're predicting the total snow will be between 10 and 14 inches. We're hopeful. We've seen this before. You know, you can see storms change in mid-course. They can get better, they can get worse. But right now, we are hopeful that the main body of the snow will slow down between 12 noon and 1 p.m. So that super intense snow, hopefully, we'll start to see reduce in an hour or two. Then the winter storm warning will go all the way till 6 p.m. at this moment, based on our conversations with the National Weather Service. That's the time that we would expect all snow to cease by the late afternoon, hopefully no later than 6 p.m. We are, at this moment, feeling good about tomorrow morning's rush hour. Now, a lot to play out today. I'm not going to count any chickens before they're hatched, but right now, if those projections hold, if the snow slows down substantially in the next hour or two and then is fully completed by 5 or 6 p.m., feel very good about the opportunity for our sanitation workers to get out there and really clear the streets thoroughly in the evening and overnight. And again, 2,300 vehicles are out salting and plowing. Workers on 12-hour shifts. And one of the things that we're going to see today for the first time is the impact of investments we made in the last budget. We put in $21 million for smaller snow clearing vehicles to allow us to get better at some of the smaller residential streets in the outer boroughs. Those vehicles are out in force today. We're going to see the impact they make. I think it's going to help us get back and running quicker. Now, that's what the city's doing, and I want to say, in addition to praising sanitation, I want to thank all of my colleagues who are here and the agencies that they lead, all of which are in this fight together and doing a great job. I want to thank our First Deputy Mayor, Tony Shores, our Commissioner of Transportation, Polly Trottenberg, our Fire Commissioner, Dan Nigro, General Manager of NYCHA, Michael Kelly, Chief of Patrol for the NYPD, Terry Monahan, our Parks Commissioner, Mitch Silver, and our Commissioner for the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Victor Calisi. All of them doing a great job. I gave Michael Kelly a special thank you for the great work that his team at Ravenswood Houses had done today, clearing the walks for the residents out there. And thank you for that. But that's what the government's doing, and I think it's working by and large. We've got a lot more to do, but here's what we need the people to do. We need the people to get off the streets. So look, I can't emphasize this enough. Don't drive your car today. It's real simple. We need you off the streets. Again, I understand sometimes people have no choice. But if you do have a choice, don't drive your car. It's very tough conditions out there. It's very hard to get around. A lot of cars are swerving and sliding, having trouble stopping in time because of these conditions. Again, this super intense snow, we can still expect for another hour or two. Sanitation needs you off the streets so they can do their job. If people keep their cars off the streets, sanitation can plow and plow and plow again and get things back to normal. But they can't do that if there's traffic all in the way, and they can't do that if cars break down and then block up streets so sanitation literally is not able to pass. That's been a problem in the past. We need people to recognize this is something you got to do for each other and get off the streets and stay safe in the process. So obviously mass transit is running. So I want to urge anyone who does need to get around. Subways are running well. There's some delays, but they're running well. Buses, by and large, are running well. That's the way to go. And also, I should say, for anyone concerned about their car and what's going to happen the next few days, want you to know up front, alternate side parking canceled tomorrow, Friday, canceled Saturday as well. So you don't have to worry about moving your car. It's another good reason why you can leave it be. You're not going to have a problem with alternate side. Now, just a couple of things. Anyone having a problem with heat or hot water in their building, if you live in an apartment building and you're not getting heat or hot water, please dial 311 immediately. We need to know that as soon as possible so we can get teams out there to deal with it. And very important, I know Dan Nigro always wants me to remind people, if you don't have heat, don't improvise by opening up the stove and turning on the stove high. That's not safe. We don't want to see someone who doesn't have heat do something that literally could lead to a fire. Please check on your neighbors, particularly if they're senior citizens or folks with health issues. Help people shovel if they need help and you're able to do it. And as you know, we're looking out for everyone vulnerable. Our Code Blue is in effect with homeless services working closely with NYPD to get anyone in who needs help. Our homestat teams are out. And reminding people, if you have a problem, again, like heat or hot water problem, you call 311. If you see a real emergency, you see someone in danger, you're in danger yourself, of course, call 911. Just a few words in Spanish. Hoy tenemos una gran tormenta de nieve. Estamos dando todos los pasos necesarios para mantener a los neoyorquinos seguros. Esto es muy importante. Quiero que todos presten atención. Por favor, eviten salir a las calles. Por favor, eviten manejar sus carros. El Departamento de Sanidad necesita limpiar nuestras calles. Si tienen que salir, usen el transporte público. Cuídense y cuiden a sus vecinos. With that, I want you to hear first from our First Deputy Commissioner for OEM, Calvin Drayton, and then our Sanitation Commissioner, Catherine Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
As the Mayor said, this is a very, very dangerous storm, and I would encourage each and every one of the citizens of New York City to take mass transit and give the sanitation an opportunity to do their job. We expect this snow, as the Mayor said earlier, to end earlier this afternoon before the evening rush hour. As he mentioned earlier, he got a first-hand report from the National Weather Service upstairs with us. She's been with us now for the since last night, and she will continue to be here providing the Mayor with up-to-date on the storm's progress. Our Emergency Operations Center is currently open. We've been open since midnight, and we will stay open until this storm is over with, and we've got the city back to normal. Our city's tow truck task force, has been activated. We've had about 14 buses that were stuck. The MTA is doing a great job getting those out of the snowbanks, et cetera. We have, I just was notified as I was coming in, Mr. Mayor, that JFK is on a full stop on the runway, so there are no planes departing the city at this time. Oh, wrong way, excuse me. Wrong way. I'm not used to this, Mr. Mayor.
You can do it. Just improvise.
Temperatures have been dropping, as we all know, so again, stay inside, stay off the roadways. The wind chill factors, again, very, very low for the next several days. If you are going to shovel, we want you to stay safe. Stretch before you head out, dress warmly, and always take breaks. For further weather information and updates, sign up to our Notify NYC, the city's free emergency notification system. And as always, if you have a problem, always call 311. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And now, Commissioner Garcia.
The shortest one. As the mayor said, we have over 2,300 pieces of equipment working across all 5 boroughs. They are in every neighborhood across all 5 boroughs. And then we have what are we called tandem teams that are working on the highways. We have had been behind some accidents that have slowed us down on some of those, but at this point in time, since about 7 a.m., we've hit about 90% of all of the streets in the city of New York. We started full spread operations around 3:22 this morning and full plow operations around 7:22 this morning. You can track us on Plow NYC at any time to see when we were last there. Additionally, as the mayor mentioned, we got front-end loaders. 9 of them are actually already working in Staten Island in the Greens, which is a very tight area. The rest of them will roll out as we get additional accumulations. In addition to the uniform force, we also have hundreds of mechanics who are working to make sure that we keep our vehicles rolling throughout this event. But this is a very difficult event for sanitation to fight just due to the rate of intensity, and I really do encourage you to stay off the roads. It's very slippery out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we're going to be taking questions about this situation, and we welcome your questions now. Yes, David.
We asked the commissioner, you mentioned the front-end loaders, I think, on Staten Island. Is that, and can you just explain a little bit more, the $21 million that was appropriated last year? Because I know some of those small streets in Queens last year, they were the folks who were really upset. Is that all one and the same? Or?
So the $21 million actually was for the purchase of what are called halters, which are small salt spreaders specifically designed for the small streets in Queens and in Staten Island. And then we also got additional front-end loaders to do plowing. We hadn't actually ever usually deployed them to plow ahead of a storm, but they are what ended up digging out most of Queens in the aftermath of the blizzard last year. So all of the halters have been deployed. The front-end loaders obviously are for higher depths. So as we get close to those higher depths, we will deploy the rest of those pieces of equipment.
So how's it going with those?
So we've been very pleased so far with how the front-end loaders are performing, and the halters are critical to getting into those smaller streets.
Can you just describe what they look like
So,
compared to your previous equipment?
Absolutely. So the halter looks like a very large pickup truck with 2 tons of salt in the back. And so in comparison, our regular spreaders hold about 16 tons of salt.
Okay. Oh, back there? Yeah. No, you right there. You had your hand up.
You mentioned, about 90% of streets are plowed, but I noticed in Garrison Beach where there's a lot of build-back work going on. How are you navigating those streets, and are those getting plowed as much?
I don't know the specifics on where we are in Garrison Beach. We can find that out. I know that we have started all areas. In Garrison Beach, we have actually sometimes need to go even to smaller equipment. We need to use the skid steers to get in there. But the boroughs are managing that and making accommodations to their fleet to ensure that we have the smallest equipment because it's so incredibly tight
Tell
there.
them what a skid steer is.
So a skid steer, sorry.
Speak English.
A skid steer is English. A bobcat is what it is. So it's like Kleenex and tissues, but it looks like a bobcat. So it's a tiny, tiny little front-end loader plowing situation. You'll see them on construction sites.
Like on the city's map, it says they haven't been plowed in like 3 to 6 hours.
You're
So
saying you're for Garrison Beach, they have said that?
That is very possible. We have not gotten to every street yet, as I've said, but we are continuing to plow, and we are going to continue to go back over and over again, because even if we got there 3 hours ago, you may have 6 inches of snow on your block.
Mara?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, since the storm is so severe until fast moving. Yesterday we knew it was going to be severe. Often you'll do press conferences, multiple press conferences. Why did you decide not to go to the press conference with Commissioner Garcia yesterday? I mean, you were at the UFT endorsement.
Yeah. Just, I thought it was being well handled. We were way ahead of it. We were getting the information out. We were able to make the decision on the school situation earlier than I think we ever have been because we were getting such clear information. So I thought the situation was well in hand. Was there one behind you? Okay, we're going to go this way. Yep.
When do we make the decision on schools for tomorrow, and do you have any guesses about where you may go?
Yeah, I'll guess. We haven't really had a formal conversation, but at this point, we feel good about tomorrow, meaning we feel that the city will be largely back to normal, and we'll be able to have school open and a pretty normal rush hour. Now, you know, let's check in a few hours and see if that's still true. But I would say to my fellow parents, plan on school being open tomorrow. Coming this way. Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you think it was so important for people to stay off the roads and not get into their cars or whatever, why you didn't address it yesterday and warn people, don't even think about it.
Yeah, I told people in the several interviews I did yesterday, I did radio interviews and I did a TV interview, and that message got out. We used social media. I think we put that out clearly. I think people actually done a pretty good job. We've seen, and certainly when my touring around, I was impressed that there was relatively little traffic. I think there's some places we're having a little bit more trouble. We're going to keep pounding away with that message. But I think people are learning with each passing storm that if they want the streets clear, the smartest thing to do is to get off the roads.
Could you tell us what you experienced when you were out driving today?
Yeah, Marcia, I was impressed by the fact that things were moving. Sanitation had clearly been through. I met with Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer at Ravenswood Houses. His district had had a lot of trouble in the past storm. I called Councilmember Jalissa Ferreras. Hers had had trouble as well. Both said they were seeing real results from sanitation this time, and they were pleased with what they saw. There were cars out, but nowhere near the number you would see normally. So still a lot of work to be done. You could tell it was hard for cars to move around. It was certainly cold out. You know, I walked around both that area around Ravenswood. I walked around Jackson Heights a bit. Real cold out. But I think, again, sanitation did a good first pass, and people are by and large heeding the warning.
So, Mr. Mayor, yesterday you had 2 radio interviews and I believe...
TV, yeah. 2 radio and TV.
But do you think that you could have done a better job?
No,
of
I'm
getting-
content. You know, we're getting the message out with a lot of forums. I know the sanitation commissioner had a press conference. We did a lot of social media. I think the word got out. Anna.
There's a fatal fire on Staten Island this morning. I know a couple of firefighters were injured. Was the snow at all a factor in the response to that fire?
Absolutely not. Unfortunately, we did lose a gentleman, and that gentleman's brother is in critical condition. The response time to that fire was less than 3 minutes. The firehouse is quite close to the location, and it was a second alarm on arrival. There was a great deal of fire. Met the firefighters when they got there. They made a very brave interior attack in the fire, and a number of firefighters were injured, none seriously. But it did result in the death of one person and a critical injury to another.
I don't really understand how this works, but is it harder to put out a fire in the snow or easier?
It can take a little longer to stretch hose lines in the snow and get ladders in position, so we did put extra firefighters on duty to cover for that.
Grace, I saw you live from Brooklyn Heights this morning.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Dramatic frontline footage.
Quite dramatic. I thought I covered politics, but school is out today. The snow is expected to taper off at some point. I know there's a warning in effect until 6 p.m. But any message to children who are at home who may be itching to get outside once the worst of the snowfall stops? Any concerns about kids taking sleds into parks or playing outside?
I'm going to start and pass to our Parks Commissioner, Mitch Silver, but I'm going to first speak as a parent. I always say to parents in a snowstorm, keep an eye on your children, because right now I would not encourage anyone to go out because it's just too intense. But even later on, kids love to go to the park. I think adult supervision is a really good thing. Mitch, why don't you speak to the specifics of how you're handling it?
Parks are not closed, but we're encouraging people not to go into parks until the intense part of the storm is over. We know this is a temptation, particularly when school is out, for both children and dog owners to just gravitate to parks. Because of the conditions and limited visibility, we're encouraging extreme caution, and we prefer people wait for the storm to pass through the area. Again, we expect that to be early afternoon, so that they use caution if they go into the parks. But parks are not closed, but we encourage people to stay away until the storm passes.
Willie?
I think a lot of people would say it's sensible to keep kids home from school, to encourage drivers to stay off the road. But just now and this morning, earlier, you went a lot further. This morning you said, I want to emphasize to all New Yorkers, stay inside if you can. Don't go out if you don't have to.
Right.
A lot of New Yorkers would hear that and say, when did we become a city of wimps? Isn't it the mayor's job? Isn't it the mayor's job to keep the city running, not to tell the city to stop all activity?
Willie. And Pat Kiernan asked a different version of that question earlier. I think when you're talking about a super concentrated snowstorm, which, let's say 5-6 hours of unusually intense snow, it is just plain common sense to not go out in that if you don't have to stay home, keep your car home, so everyone who's out there working on behalf of New Yorkers, especially our sanitation workers, can do their job. Just plain common sense. It is not a moral judgment. It's not that we've changed who we are. This is one of the toughest, most resilient cities on earth, and we've proven it 1,000 times over. But this storm, and the reason we made the decision to close schools earlier the day before than we have, certainly in my 3 years, is because we heard so distinctly from the National Weather Service, this was going to be a very concentrated, intense storm. And it made sense to give people understanding of that and to get them to alter their behavior for it. So there's plenty of times we've faced challenges, and I've told people it's business as usual. Go about your business. Obviously, we're not going to be intimidated by things that happen around the world, et cetera, et cetera. When you're talking about 5 or 6 hours when it's just not smart for people to be outside, I think that's the right thing to do to make that clear to people. Greg?
This is for Commissioner Garcia. Can you give us a snapshot of whatever your last briefing was on primary, secondary, tertiary, and what's been hit and what's not been hit?
So yes, we were at so what I looked at my last briefing, because obviously we're much further along if I say I started at 3 a.m. So since 7 a.m. To right before we walked down here, we are across the city on all routes. We're at 91.4%. On the smallest Holster routes for the small equipment, we were in the 80s. But overall, we were over 90% in the last, since 7 a.m. But I'm going to say, if you got hit at 7 a.m., you have 6 or 7 inches of snow on the ground again. We are coming back around over and over again, so we will continue to do that. And I just want to temper one thing about, yes, I do think we will have a relatively normal commute tomorrow, but it will be very cold, and there still will be snow there. And so people should take caution. I'm not saying anyone should stay home, but you should be cautious as you're moving about during the day.
Could you just one quick, I want to clarify. The 91% was your figure?
Mm-hmm.
As of what hour, just so we're all hearing it right? The last hour that you can say you have.
So from 7 a.m. until 10:58. That's when I got the last report.
Okay.
So in this will keep repeating and go back, and so then I change the timestamp and say, what have we done since 10 a.m. to now? Will be the next thing I look at.
Do you have to do more repetition?
Yes.
Because of the intensity?
The intensity of the storm is meaning that we are having to try and move through all of those routes over and over again. We design our routes to try and make it so that they're about that 2 hours in length. 2 hours now, maybe 6 inches of snow. And that's a lot of snow for us to be coming back around on.
Great.
Commissioner Garcia, just to follow up, could you give a time frame when, if the storm does temper, off in the afternoon, taper off in the afternoon, when can people expect their streets to be clean? Because a lot of times people say, oh, my area got forgotten, they're not coming here. What do people do if the snow has stopped, they still see, 8-10 inches of snow and they feel like no one's coming? Do they call you? And what should be people's expectations?
So, and this is always very challenging because every storm is different. At this point in time, we have a piece of equipment in every single neighborhood as of right now, as of actually since earlier this morning. So once we are through with all of the snowfall, everything is done. It will take us several more hours to make sure that we have hit every single street. But usually that will occur within 3 or 4 hours. We will have been able to make a pass, but I can't make any promises. This is very heavy snow, and it is very difficult for us to move through it.
Let me just add to that. I understand why people get frustrated, for sure, and I understand that they can feel like they're forgotten. No one's going to be forgotten. This is all based on, a very systematic plan. We're going to reach every neighborhood. We're going to reach every street. But here's what we want to emphasize. One, for these next hours, you could plow every street simultaneously, and it's just going to reaccumulate again very, very quickly. If you're talking 2 or 3 inches an hour, you can imagine that's literally impossible to plow every street in New York City simultaneously all the time. So we're going to be playing catch-up all through the afternoon just because of the intensity of this storm. What I think will really matter is when we get into the evening and the overnight, that if people continue to stay out of the way of sanitation, let them do their job, then they go on the offensive and are not fighting a constant, barrage of snow coming in, they can get things pretty good for tomorrow morning. So if it holds that the snow is done by 5 or 6 o'clock, sanitation throws everything they got at it, people stay out of the way, keep their cars parked, stay out of the way, let sanitation do their job, I think it adds up nicely. If people see the snow end and everyone starts to get in their car and drive around, that's going to slow down clearing the snow. And I look at it this way, this day obviously was disrupted by Mother Nature. I want tomorrow to be as normal as it possibly can be. And I hope, anyone who feels the same way, which I imagine is a vast majority, are going to participate by staying out of the way of sanitation, keeping their cars home. Go.
Mr. Mayor, just particularly since we are at OEM headquarters, wondering about the absence of Commissioner Bruno. If you could tell us where he is.
Commissioner Bruno is long since retired. I think you mean Commissioner Esposito.
Esposito,
yes.
sorry.
You want to give the update?
Sure. As you all know, the commissioner was at the press conference yesterday. He had a well-planned ahead vacation. I've been in touch with him numerous times. He's been in touch with his executive staff numerous times. In fact, I think he's still here in the building somewhere. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Garcia, you said 9 of the front-end loaders were already on Staten Island. Where were they deployed? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
You're right.
On the green, so off of Arden and Huguenot, in those areas that, as you know, are very tight. And if there, once we are past the storm and you think that there's something that I don't know, I encourage everyone to always reach out to us via 311.
With 2,300 pieces of equipment today, how many more is that than you had last year at this time? And how many of those are the holsters?
There are 163 holsters on the street today. That is double what I had last year. Just to give you a sense of what we've done in terms of snow equipment under this administration, we have about 56% more salting equipment than we did. And so we've, in some cases, made it so that we're using more salting equipment and more appropriately small equipment than of the white trucks. But we did about 2,500 pieces during the blizzard last year. So it's really finding the right fleet for the right streets, rather than trying to use a one-size-fits-all approach.
Equipment out today than you did a year ago.
We have less equipment out today than we did in the blizzard.
Yeah. And the blizzard, I will remind you, which we didn't know at the time, but we found out afterwards, was the largest snowfall in the history of New York City going back 150 years. This is a much more concentrated situation. Thankfully, the high end of projections here is still 14 inches, which would make it about half of last year's snowfall during the blizzard. Yes?
No talk of a travel ban yet with Governor Cuomo.
No, look, again, this is a super concentrated event. Remember, again, I think it's a good juxtaposition to the blizzard. The blizzard last year, you remember, with every passing hour, the estimates kept going up, and it became abundantly clear it was going to be a longer event and a much more challenging event because it just wouldn't stop. And the numbers mounted, and we thought we were going to be the second biggest snowfall of all time. When it was finally counted, it was the greatest snowfall of all time in New York City. In that instance, the travel ban was necessary because it had any chance of getting back in the game. Sanitation legendarily, in my view, got the city up and running for the morning rush hour that Monday, which I thought was absolutely amazing. But in this case, this is very concentrated snow. Again, we think by even as early as 12 or 1, the worst will be over. I don't see a travel ban situation here. Certainly the state's not suggesting it. The state has kept the MTA going pretty much on normal schedule. So I think we're all very much on the same page.
The governor, I think, is scheduled to speak at noon about the storm. Have you been in touch with him, and was there any discussion about appearing jointly today to talk
Our
about?
staffs have been in touch, and everyone's coordinated and on the same page. So we just decided everyone's doing fine with what we're doing.
Mr. Mayor, when you close schools, do you incur a loss of state aid? And if so, how much do you lose?
To the best of my knowledge, the answer is no if we are able to achieve the full school calendar for the year. So I'm looking at the expert has given me the nod. That is correct. So we do not anticipate any problem with this. And, of late, we as you know, Marcia, we have to look at history and plan for the potential of a few days of snow days each year. Thankfully, the last few years, we haven't had to use as many as the plan allows for. Okay, yes, way back. Yeah, that's you. That's you.
Hi, this is Sia from Cinevision. I'm wondering, compared to past years, what more measures did you take this year in preparation for the blizzard?
I think two things are real different and clear compared even to last year. One, because we had such sharp, consistent information from the National Weather Service, we were able to call school off earlier than we normally do. I want to remind you, I think it was the first time, I'm looking at Tony again, we had to cancel school in 2014, 15, but we made one decision at 5 in the morning the same day because we didn't have a clear enough picture. The fact that we knew by around 6 o'clock for sure that it was going to close was very helpful all around. We had clear information, we were able to act on it. The second big difference is the additional equipment and the smaller equipment, in particular at sanitation, to allow us to get to the side streets and do a better job. And we've added consistently sanitation equipment over the last 3 years, but the smaller apparatus is going to help us quite a bit. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Mariela Salgado from Univision. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that. The smaller vehicles, you talked about investing $21 million. A lot of our audience live in those little neighborhoods in Queens, and we had so many complaints the last time. Can you elaborate how those vehicles work, what they're doing in those
Yeah, and I was out there in those neighborhoods like Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, a number of neighborhoods that really experienced tremendous frustration in the blizzard last year because they just didn't see the trucks coming through consistently. And part of the problem was we had a domino effect. People shoveled out their cars, that snow added up on the street. It got so bad that the big equipment couldn't get through effectively. Everything got bogged down, and that was one of the things that convinced us that we needed this smaller equipment. So as the commissioner said, the Bobcat, we've all seen them around, like the small little front loaders and the other types of equipment. This is going to allow those vehicles, they can get through those streets no matter what. And the bigger vehicles can focus on the bigger streets, but with the small streets, this is equipment that even if there's snow shoveled in the way or anything else, they can move around. They have the maneuverability. A lot of times with the big equipment, they start down the street and they just literally get stuck because they can't maneuver well. So we're really excited about what this is going to allow us to do, and we think you're going to see a real different outcome this time.
Last two.
Anything else? Yeah.
Mayor, we understand there was a doorman from the Upper
Yeah.
East Side who died. He was
Yeah.
shoveling and then he fell. Do you have any?
Yeah, let me let Terry Monahan speak to that.
Yeah, so what we have so far, it happened around 9:30 this morning. Doorman's out in front of his building on 93rd Street. He's shoveling the snow. He slips and falls through the glass window, and he expired.
Okay.
Ages or any?
I can get you that at a later date.
Yeah, no,
Later time.
Very, very sad situation, and we don't obviously have all the details, but it's another reminder of people, be very careful when you're shoveling, and if you're not up to shoveling, don't shovel. Take breaks, all of those common sense rules. We don't know what happened in this case, but that's just a good reminder why people have to take it seriously. Okay, last call, and we will keep you updated throughout the day. Particularly, we'll confirm if this timeline we're seeing on the snow continues to hold and what that's going to mean for our ability to keep clearing the roads. Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, there's the snow plan online. When she said the 91%.
Sorry.
Yes. 91%. Okay.